The show, Survivor.
Survival for the fittest.
Think about the word survival. I think about Haiti, the people who survived from the disaster there.
I'm going to say the Jewish people because we've been persecuted for like 2,500 years and we still have the strength to defend ourselves and win.
Survivor to me means cancer. Someone who has fought and is surviving with their ailment.
When I think of the word survivor, I think of someone who overcame a hard time and overcome a challenge and survived it.
I think of people who were strong enough to get past the event that, well, many other people wouldn't be able to get over it. So therefore, they survived.
I was just going to say that.
Mentally and physically.
When I think of the word survivor, I think of somebody who can just have an outlook on life that no matter what the situation is, they can always look on the optimistic side and somehow prevail through the hardships that they're trying to come through.
Know how strong you are until you have no choice but to be strong. My name is Cheryl Graviak. I'm a cancer survivor, and this is my story. On July 16, 2004, I was diagnosed with stage 3 invasive breast cancer with metastatic cancer in the lymph nodes. The first hours of those days passed by in a blur. Suddenly, I was dealing with words like invasive, aggressive, metastatic, words that must be pertaining to somebody else. I heard the word aggressive so many times I grew to hate that word. Once I got over the initial shock, I was able to start putting a game plan into action. However, before I could do that, I had to inform my family. I'm a single mom with 2 kids. Rachel and Jess are the light of my life, and I had no idea how I was going to tell them. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I had to assure them that things were going to be okay. Their lives had to go on as normal as possible. I broke it to them as gently as I could, and after lots of tears and lots of discussion, we started on our journey to beat this disease. It was imperative for me that their lives go on as normal as possible. The last thing that I wanted was for them to stay home and watch me be sick. I learned a lot about myself throughout the course of this treatment. I learned how much I could endure and still push myself a little farther. I learned that I could get through the nausea, the bone pain, the baldness, the 4 or 5 hour treatments, and the fact that I had no taste buds for 6 months. I learned that even though I was as tired as I had ever been in my life, I could push myself to get up and go to work every day. When my hair fell out, I chose not to wear a wig. It was not right for me. By the time my treatment was done, I had over 100 bandanas that were given to me by family and friends. Just another way people show that they are there for you and how much they care. Over time, I developed a strange sense of humor about this. Chemo treatments became known as happy hour. We make jokes about the fact that I can now choose whether or not I want to have breasts on any particular day. We also joke about the fact that people would not say the word cancer in front of me. It was always said in a whisper, no matter what the level of conversation was prior to that word. Apparently, you should never speak the word cancer out loud in front of a cancer patient. So many people were bound to support me throughout this battle. I will be forever grateful for those that rallied around me during my darkest time. They all helped so much and were there for me when I needed a pick-me-up or a shoulder to cry on. And there were days that I cried a lot. I also learned a lot about the American Cancer Society and the programs and events they have for cancer patients and their families. Relay for Life is one of the most incredible events I've ever attended. When people ask me why I relay, I tell them I relay because cancer is now a part of who I am. The treatments end and the scars will fade, but the disease has had a lasting effect on my life. I thank you all for participating, for all your fundraising efforts, and for the love and support that you show to me and my fellow survivors. I also want to offer thanks to the committee that worked so hard to put this night together. Without them and the American Cancer Society, this event would not be possible. We relay because we can, we relay because we care. We relay so we can put an end to this terrible disease, and that someday the phrase, "you have cancer," will not exist. Thank you.
Relay for Life means a lot of things to me. It means a celebration of survivors. It means a place where people can gather who have lost loved ones to cancer. It's people working together for the same cause so that we can all celebrate more birthdays and stamp out cancer forever, so no one ever has to hear the words, "you have cancer." So the first year I ever did Relay for Life, I was as a participant, and I had known people that had been diagnosed with cancer. I knew people that battled, and it was my first time attending Relay and going through the whole opening ceremonies and the luminaria and how much it meant to people around me. And then the second year I did Relay was right after I had been diagnosed and gone through some breast cancer treatments. And it was a completely different experience being there as a survivor. I attended the survivor reception where I was in a tent basically for dinner with my fellow survivors and their caregivers and all people that had been through the same thing. And as a survivor, the luminaria ceremony is far more emotional because it hits home. After my first year, or my first couple of years participating as a survivor, I wanted to help out on the committee, but that year it didn't work out because I had to have another surgery. So we went down in the morning and we helped set up, so I knew what the committee was doing, but I was not part of the committee. The year I was asked to be honorary chair as a survivor was last year, and my family and I got much more involved. We saw Relay behind the scenes. We met a lot of people that had been involved for a long time in the running of Relay, and being an honorary chair touched my heart in a way that I didn't expect it to. It brought out a lot of emotion that I had stored away, but I didn't really expect to react as I did as an honorary chair when I stood up there and I was giving my speech and telling people my story and having people actually listen and realize what it was I had gone through. I knew that I wanted to get more involved. My plan was to be part of the planning committee, but then the people from ACS and from Relay needed a second co-chair because their co-chair from last year couldn't do it. So they asked me if I wanted to do it, and although it was pretty nerve-wracking, I said I would do it. And it's interesting to see Relay from this point of view, to see how much is actually involved and how much effort and planning the committee has to put into it to pull off the incredible event that they do.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me.
One of the really big parts of our Relay for Life is to celebrate survivors and their accomplishments. And we don't ever want to put behind those we have lost to the battle, because those people are also very near and dear to us. But the survivorship part of Relay is a celebration of how far we've come. We try and invite more survivors every year. We try and get people to come and tell their story and celebrate the fact that they have gone through this battle and come out the other side. And the emphasis that Relay puts on the importance of survivorship makes it all that much better. I most definitely consider myself a survivor. I went through what I consider a pretty long, hard battle. The American Cancer Society's definition of a survivor is you become a survivor as the day of your diagnosis. And there are some people who had what they consider lesser cancers, or people who have not been through chemo or not been through radiation, and they say that it's hard to call themselves survivors because they see people like me who had so many surgeries and chemotherapy and radiation, and they don't feel that they can be on the same level as I am. But in my mind, a survivor is a survivor. If anyone has ever told you that you have cancer or suspected that you have cancer, it's a very, very scary thing to hear and a scary process to go through. So I am proud to call myself a survivor because I went through some very dark times and I came out on the other side, and that makes me very happy. When I first found out I was cancer-free, I, in a lot of ways, found it really hard to believe. It's almost like you don't want to jinx things and celebrate the fact that they say that you're now in remission. And I felt that if I celebrate that too much, there's always the possibility that it will come back. Hearing that it's gone and that all your tests are normal is a very uplifting thing, and it makes you really happy. Unfortunately for me, once I was diagnosed with cancer, it became part of who I am, and it's always in the back of my head. So when you get certain aches and pains or blood tests come back a little funny, it's hard to not panic and think you're headed right back into that direction. So although remission is remission, it's hard to believe that it's forever. The best piece of advice I can give someone who's recently diagnosed with cancer is to remain strong and positive, because a positive attitude makes all the difference in the world. Having cancer and not knowing how long your battle is going to be and how involved your treatments are going to be is complicated enough. And I've had people tell me, and I would say the same to newly diagnosed people, positive attitude makes things so much better. Don't wallow in your own sympathies. Don't poor me. As hard as it gets, try and find the positives. Find the reason you put your feet on the floor every day and focus on that, because there's a reason that we all fight this battle, and you have to know what it is and why you're doing it to make it all successful.